Previously, we tackled various legal systems arising from different corners of the world. Today, we will be exploring the 5 salient features of the Philippine legal system. This is Joanna Cristabel Belleza, and welcome to this week's episode of Laws in Translation. First, the Philippine legal system is characterized by the hybridization of various legal systems, the most dominant being civil law, common law, and Islamic law. According to Salvador Carlota, the Philippine legal system today is a unique blending of common law and civil law principles. Its public law is substantially patterned after common law doctrines, while its private law follows the civil law tradition of Spain. This is a result of the long colonial history of the Philippines. Thus, the Philippine private law at present, such as the law on persons and family relations, obligations and contracts, and succession, are substantially patterned after the Civil Code of Spain. On the other hand, its public law, notably constitutional law, administrative law, and the law on public offices, are to a great extent based on American law. By virtue of Section 137 of Presidential Decree No. 1083, or the Code of Muslim Personal Laws, Sharia courts were created. The Sharia form part of the law of the land, especially in Muslim communities. Second, there are 5 main sources of Philippine law: the Philippine Constitution, statutes, treaties and conventions, established jurisprudence by the Supreme Court, and to some extent, customary law pursuant to the constitutional mandate that the state shall recognize, respect, and protect the rights of indigenous cultural communities to preserve and develop their cultures, traditions, and institutions. Third, the doctrine of separation of powers between the executive, legislative, and judicial branches of government remain in effect until today. Our Constitution bears the imprint of certain dominant principles enshrined in the U.S. Federal Constitution. Starting with the 1935 Constitution to the 1973 Constitution and the current Constitution of 1987, the concept of separation of powers between the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branches of government has been consistently recognized. The doctrine of separation of powers is designed to prevent tyranny and by preventing the concentration of the sovereign powers of the state in one body. Fourth, the power of judicial review is a noteworthy feature of the Philippine legal system. Under the present Constitution, the certiorari power of Supreme Court constitutes not only the power to settle actual controversies involving rights which are legally demandable and enforceable, but also to determine whether or not these has been a grave abuse of discretion amounting to lack or excessive jurisdiction on the part of any branch or instrumentality of the government. This is also known as the expanded jurisdiction doctrine, which asserts not the superiority of the judiciary over the executive and legislative branches, but rather the superiority of the Constitution. Fifth, the Philippine Constitution devotes an entire article on the Bill of Rights, which is also reflected in Article 32 of the Civil Code. Pursuant to the establishment of a democratic and republican state where sovereignty resides in the people, the Bill of Rights guarantees the right to due process, the right to equal protection of the laws, the right against unreasonable searches and seizures, privacy of communication, freedom of speech, of expression, or of the press, and the right to peaceable assembly and petition the government for redress of grievances, among other rights. The Philippine legal system is indeed a unique blend of various influences and factors. It is a product of decades of colonization, dictatorships, revolutions, overthrowing of old governments, and establishments of the new. Today, 37 petitions against the controversial Anti-Terrorism Act of 2020 are currently pending at the Supreme Court. The court's oral arguments and the eventual decision, the constitutionality of the said law, will have ramifications on the Philippine legal system for the decades and even centuries to come. If there is anything permanent about the Philippine legal system, it is its affinity and susceptibility to change as the government promulgates new laws, the courts decide landmark cases, and a new generation of lawyers and practitioners define and redefine the profession of law. A comprehensive understanding of the history of our legal system will help us make sense of its present form and consequently its future. That's it for today's episode of Laws in Translation. Thank you and have a good day.